Welcome back to the deep dive, where we dig into a bunch of sources and find those little golden nuggets of knowledge. Today, we're diving into A Course in Miracles, specifically Lesson 66. We've got some really interesting stuff to explore here. We've got some discussions and some formal summaries, and it all comes down to how this lesson can help us understand what true happiness really is.
What's really interesting here is that this isn't just some feel-good philosophy or anything like that. This lesson actually gives us a practical guide for how to become happier. And it all revolves around this idea that your happiness is completely tied up with your purpose in this world.
Okay, yeah, that definitely got my attention. But before we get too deep into Lesson 66, can you give us a little background? What's the main message of A Course in Miracles, and how does this particular lesson fit in?
So, A Course in Miracles, the whole thing is about trying to kind of undo how our ego sees the world and instead remember who we really are, like spiritually. It's a journey of spiritual growth and change, and it really emphasizes things like forgiveness, love, and realizing that we're all connected.
So it's not like a typical religion then.
You got it. It's more like a self-help guide for personal and spiritual growth. And Lesson 66, the one we're talking about today, it focuses on this concept of function. And basically, function means your own unique contribution to the world, your spiritual purpose, if you will.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going, but I gotta admit, the whole idea of spiritual purpose, you can feel a bit abstract, you know? Does Lesson 66 give us anything more concrete to work with?
Well, it gets right to the point. It just straight up says your happiness and your function are the same thing. Like, literally, they're one. In other words, true happiness doesn't come from stuff you achieve or things you own. It comes from aligning yourself with this deeper purpose.
Yeah, I've definitely been down that road of thinking, oh, if I just get that promotion or buy that new car, I'll finally be happy. But, it always fades so fast. Is that what the course is talking about?
Exactly. The Course is saying that stuff, that material stuff, can't make you happy for very long because it's trying to fill a spiritual hole. It's like trying to quench your thirst by drinking salt water?
That's a great way to put it. So how do we actually bridge that gap? How do we connect with our function, our spiritual purpose, and experience that deeper happiness, the kind that actually lasts?
And that's where the practical tools from Lesson 66 come into play. It gives us some actual, tangible ways to start aligning with our purpose and cultivating a feeling of fulfillment that goes beyond just our circumstances. And one of the most important tools it gives us is the power of affirmations.
Okay, so I've heard of affirmations. Is this like looking in the mirror and saying, I am happy over and over?
It's similar, but it's more focused. The lesson says you should repeat the phrase, my happiness and my function are one. You're consciously trying to change your mindset so you actually believe that your happiness depends on fulfilling your purpose.
But isn't that kind of backwards? Like, what if I don't even know what my purpose is yet? Can I still benefit from saying that affirmation?
Of course. The Course makes a big deal about just being open to the idea and repeating the affirmation sincerely. Just doing that can open you up to new possibilities and insights. It's like planting a seed in your mind, encouraging your own inner wisdom to lead you towards your purpose.
So even if I don't have all the answers yet, just saying that phrase can help me start to find my purpose and that deeper happiness.
That's it. It's about lining up your thoughts and your beliefs with who you really are and letting that truth guide your actions.
I can see how that would be powerful. It's like giving yourself permission to believe that happiness isn't something you have to chase. It's something you grow from within.
It's a small change, but it can have a big impact on how you see the world.
So we've talked about affirmations. What other tools does Lesson 66 give us to align with our purpose and find true happiness?
Another really powerful tool the lesson highlights is doing acts of service.
Interesting. How does helping others connect to finding our own happiness?
Well, remember, the lesson says our happiness and our function are the same thing, right? So when we help others, we're often using those specific talents and skills that we were meant to share with the world. It's like expressing our purpose through what we do.
That makes sense. But I think a lot of people get the wrong idea about acts of service. They think it has to be some big, grand gesture or take tons of time and energy. Is that what the course is suggesting?
Not at all. It could be something as simple as just listening to a friend who needs to talk, helping a neighbor carry groceries, or even just doing something kind for a stranger. The key is to look outward and think about how you can use your own unique gifts to make a difference in something bigger than yourself.
I'm starting to see how that relates back to function. It's not really about what your job is. It's about how you live in the world and how you share your talents and abilities, even in little ways.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that we all have something special to offer, and by sharing those gifts with others, we don't just make them happy, we experience a deeper sense of purpose and fulfillment ourselves.
I actually experienced that myself once. There was this time when um, I was going through a really rough patch, and a friend, well, she just showed up at my door with this huge pot of soup. And she just sat and listened to me. And it was such a simple thing, but it really meant the world to me. And I remember she said afterwards, she was like, I felt really good doing that. It made me happy to help.
You know, what's really interesting about that is it kind of highlights a key point from the course. It suggests that real happiness, true happiness, isn't like a limited resource. It's not like a pie where if someone gets a bigger slice, someone else gets a smaller one. It's more like when we focus on making other people happy, we actually grow our own capacity for joy.
That's kind of counterintuitive, isn't it? I mean, we often think of happiness as something you have to compete for or something you get by taking it away from someone else. But the Course is suggesting that real happiness actually expands when we share it.
It's definitely a shift in perspective. The course really stresses how interconnected everything is, how we're all connected. And it suggests that when we help other people be happy, we're basically helping ourselves too.
Okay, so we've talked about affirmations and acts of service. Are there any other tools from Lesson 66 that can help us get in touch with our purpose and experience this deeper kind of happiness?
There is one more I wanted to share with you, and it's actually a lot of fun. It's called a joy journal.
A joy journal. I've never heard of that. Tell me more.
It's really simple, but it can give you some really deep insights. The idea is to keep a journal where you write down all the little moments each day that brought you genuine joy. It could be anything. Maybe you had a really delicious meal, or you had a meaningful conversation with someone you love, or maybe you just took a minute to appreciate the beauty of nature.
So it's not just listing happy things. It's more about really thinking about those moments and why they were special.
Exactly. And as you start to fill up your journal with all these joyful moments, you'll start to see patterns. What are the common threads that connect all these experiences? What activities, environments, or relationships seem to consistently bring you joy and make you feel fulfilled?
So it's kind of like a treasure hunt, looking for clues about what really makes us happy. And the more clues we gather, the clearer our purpose becomes.
It's a beautiful way to tap into your own wisdom and discover the things that light you up inside. And those insights can really guide you as you figure out your path and make choices that are aligned with your purpose.
Okay, I'm definitely going to try that. The Joy Journal sounds like a great way to become more aware of the things that already make me happy and start to connect those dots to my sense of purpose.
I think you'll find it really illuminating. And it actually connects to a key message from Lesson 66, which is it's not just about finding our purpose out there in the world, it's about recognizing that our purpose is already showing up in our lives, all around us.
That's a really powerful insight. It's like we're not starting from scratch. We're uncovering something that's already there.
Exactly. And as we become more aware of those moments of joy and fulfillment, we can start making choices to create more of them.
So we've talked about the core message of Lesson 66, that my happiness and my function are one. And we've explored some of the tools it gives us for aligning with our purpose and finding that lasting happiness. Affirmations, acts of service, and the Joy Journal. And these all seem really practical and doable, which is great. But I'm also curious about the bigger picture. What does the Course say is the ultimate goal of all of this? What are we working towards here?
That's a great question. If we tie this back to the overall teachings of A Course in Miracles, I think the ultimate goal is spiritual awakening. It's about remembering who we really are beyond how our ego sees things.
And how does Lesson 66 fit into that?
Well, by realizing that our happiness is directly tied to our purpose, we start to loosen the ego's hold on our lives. We realize that real happiness doesn't come from chasing fleeting pleasures or accomplishments. It comes from aligning with our true spiritual selves.
So it's not just about feeling good. It's about a deeper sense of peace and fulfillment that comes from living in line with our true selves.
You said it perfectly. And the Course suggests that as we develop that inner alignment, we naturally become more loving, more compassionate, and more forgiving. We start to see the world through a lens of love instead of fear.
Wow, that sounds like a pretty radical transformation.
It can be. But what's great about A Course in Miracles is that it emphasizes taking small steps. It's not about becoming a saint overnight. It's about gradually shifting our perception and choosing to align with love, little by little, each day.
So even small, seemingly insignificant choices can make a difference.
Absolutely. The Course reminds us that every thought, every word, every action, it's all a choice. And with each choice, we have the chance to either strengthen the ego's illusion of separation or to align with the truth of love and unity.
That's a powerful reminder. It takes the pressure off of having to do some big grand thing and gives us permission to focus on making more conscious choices in our everyday lives.
Exactly. And remember, those tools we talked about earlier, affirmations, acts of service, and the joy journal, those are all simple but effective ways to practice aligning with love in our day-to-day lives.
This deep dive has been so eye-opening. I feel like I have a much better understanding of how Lesson 66 can help us find lasting happiness by connecting with our purpose and aligning with our true spiritual nature.
I'm happy to hear that. And actually, the materials we've been looking at, they have a reflection question at the end of the lesson. It asks, how can you tweak your everyday actions, even in small ways, to better align with what you feel your purpose is?
Well, that's a good one. It's prompting us to step back and look at our lives from a fresh perspective. You know,
Yeah.
are we actually living according to our values and our sense of purpose? Are we making choices that make us happy and contribute to the well-being of others?
It's a great way to bring this concept into our everyday lives. It's not about making huge changes all at once. It's about making small conscious choices that bring us closer to that alignment. Even little changes can create a ripple effect and lead to bigger shifts over time.
It's like a gentle course correction, right?
Yeah.
We're always checking in with ourselves and asking, is this in line with my purpose? Is this bringing me joy? Is this aligned with love? And if it's not, maybe it's time to make a small adjustment.
Exactly. It's a constant process of refining and realigning. And the more we practice, the more we become attuned to that inner wisdom.
I love that image, tuning in to the whispers of our inner wisdom. It's like the answers are already inside us. We just need to quiet the noise of the ego and listen.
And the tools we've discussed today can help us do just that. They're not magic formulas, but they give us practical ways to be more self-aware, connect with our purpose, and make choices that lead to a more fulfilling and joyful life.
This has been such a thought-provoking conversation. I'm sure our listeners are feeling inspired to explore their own happiness and purpose.
I hope so. It's definitely a journey worth taking. And it reminds me of something that often gets overlooked when we're chasing happiness. We tend to focus so much on what we're doing, but it's just as important to pay attention to how we're being.
That's an interesting distinction. Can you say more about that?
Well, we could be doing all the right things, like volunteering, helping people, pursuing our passions. But if we're doing those things from a place of resentment or obligation or fear, we're not going to experience real happiness.
So it's not just about checking things off a list. It's about cultivating a certain inner state of being.
Precisely. It's about bringing presence, joy, and authenticity to everything we do. It's about aligning not just our actions, but our entire being with our purpose.
Wow, that's really deep. It's
Yes.
like taking that idea of happiness and function are one and applying it to every part of our lives.
Yeah, it really changes how you think about living a purposeful life, doesn't it? It's not just about hitting goals. It's about really, truly embodying your purpose in every single moment.
Exactly. And when we can do that, when we can really live our purpose, I think we open ourselves up to a whole new level of happiness and fulfillment. It completely transforms us. It's not about looking for happiness out in the world anymore. It's about letting it shine from within.
You know, this has been such an insightful conversation. We've only just touched on lesson 66, but I already have so much to think about and try out in my own life.
Me too. It's a lesson that you can keep exploring and discovering new things about. And the great thing about A Course in Miracles is that it's not about rigid rules or dogma. It's about giving us a new way of seeing things, a new way to look at ourselves and the world around us. And that new perspective can be so powerful. It reminds us that we have a choice in how we experience life. And true happiness is there for us if we align ourselves with our purpose and choose love over fear.
I couldn't have said it better myself. You know, speaking of journeys, I think it's about time we wrap up our deep dive into A Course in Miracles, lesson 66.
You're right. But before we go, do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
Well, as we were talking, I kept coming back to this idea that happiness is not a destination, it's a journey. It's so easy to fall into that trap of thinking, oh, if I just achieve this one thing or get that one thing, then I'll finally be happy. But what this lesson is telling us is that happiness isn't some finish line you cross. It's about continually aligning yourself with your purpose and, finding joy in the process, in the journey itself.
I love that. It's about embracing everything, the ups and downs, the good times and the bad times, and finding meaning in it all, in every step you take.
Exactly. And a lot of times that meaning comes through when we pay attention to the things that already make us happy. What if those little clues we find in our joy journals are actually like signposts guiding us towards our purpose?
That's a really beautiful way to think about it. It's like those moments of joy are little whispers from our soul, leading us to a life that's in harmony with who we really are.
That's the idea.
Mhm.
It's about recognizing those whispers and being brave enough to follow them, trusting that they'll lead us to what's best for us, to our greatest happiness.
That's a wonderful thought to leave our listeners with. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and insights with us today. It's been a pleasure.
The pleasure was all mine. And remember, everyone, this journey of self-discovery and spiritual growth, it's an adventure. Keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep listening to those whispers from your soul.
And to all of our amazing listeners out there, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into A Course in Miracles. We hope this episode has given you some new insights and maybe even inspired you to start your own journey to find happiness and fulfillment.
If you enjoyed this deep dive, please give us a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel. And be sure to come back tomorrow for another fascinating exploration.
Until next time, happy diving.